Hey, good people. What's up? How we all doing? That light too bright back there. I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix that. Maybe that's better. All right, folks. Hey, number 75 today. Sunday Live, number 75. What's up, folks? Chris Cam is in the house. Ben Coombs is in the house. And Ben says he sent me a message on IG wondering if I was live this week. You know what about IG messages? I rarely check them. I don't know about you guys, but I know you guys probably know. Ben, I'm going to make you moderator again if you don't mind. Let's see here. Oh, you are a moderator already. That's right. I made you a moderator, so you stay moderator. I thought maybe I had to do it every time. Anyways, I don't know how you guys feel about that. Social media, it's like the number of places that people can contact you, you know, it's like multiple different, you know, between your email and then your regular texts and stuff like that. And then you've got instant messenger and Facebook, you know, my Facebook music page, the messages that come in there, as well as the Instagram messages and stuff. And it just becomes like, I don't know, I can't keep track of all the places these days, but I know we all go through this, right? How do you deal with it? Oh, I got multiple coffees going. This is the one I wanted. That was last night. So I was like, why is that cold? It doesn't taste very good. I just did that. Anyways, good day to you all, and hope you're having a good Sunday so far. And let's chat some guitar stuff. This week, I've been working on some synergy stuff. So, the modules for the synergy. So I've been using the Syn 1 with my PT15. As you guys know, I don't really do amp demos on YouTube because, of course, I've got signature amp. I got 2 signature amps now. So just for reasons of conflict of interest and stuff, I have traditionally avoided doing amp demos for many years now. But I've started to branch out a little bit where it's products that I don't feel like are traditional amplifiers that, you know, would get me in trouble or anything like that with my commitments. So when it comes to like preamps, that's different. And the Syn 1 is really just a you know, you guys know what it is. It's like I have a chassis actually somewhere in here. The heck is it? I've got 2 of them here. I don't know what I did with it, but anyways, I can't really show you, but I can show you the modules, of course. You know, there are these modules that slip into a chassis, and the chassis is a little bit bigger than this. And there's one that'll hold one of these called the Syn 1, and then there's another one that'll hold 2. And with these things, you guys, probably a lot of you know this already, but if you don't, you can add channels to any amplifier that has an effects loop. And I find that a really kind of one of the most interesting uses of this product is that, I think, rather than, you know, sort of thinking about it as a traditional amp, or because they make those too. But the preamp aspect of it, it works really well. I've been messing with it quite a bit, and just the fact that I can kind of plug in additional channels to my amplifier and get some different sounds. For example, this is an SLO module, Soldano design, or the Engel one I like quite a bit. I've been using it. It's called the Savage. And so my PT15, I'm making a demo of it right now, and you'll hear I'm recording a song where I use the PT15's channels, and I also use the other channels from the synergy stuff. And it's just really cool because it's like I can get these different, you know, the distortion characteristics. What I did is I used the Engel module for a dirty rhythm part, for example, where I used channel 1 on one side and channel 2 pan to the other side. And then I used the PT15 right up the middle dirty channel. And the layered 3 sounds is just humongous of recording the 3 different parts, because you're getting all these sort of different. It's interesting because I was reading on the gear page the other day, somebody talking about the synergy modules saying, well, you know, when you're not changing the speakers and you're not changing the power tubes, all you do is changing the front end. You're essentially kind of getting different levels of gain and mid shift. And I would sort of concur. Basically, I think it's a little bit more difference than just the mid shifting. You know, there's a lot of things that shift, but the overall tonal character shifts. But it's like that, of course, the speakers stay the same, the power section stays the same, so a lot stays the same. But there is this, you know, the different preamps, of course, they do sound different. So, and it's really fun, and layering the different parts man, I've been able to get these humongous sounding things because you're getting this slight variations in tone across the whole spectrum. So anyway, that's what my demo is going to be, at least initially, of this Synergy Syn 1 unit, is adding it to the PT15 and enabling me to augment the already cool sounds that I can get out of my amp with some different sounds. Okay, once again, I got to change the light here. I got some new lights, which you guys can't see, but I am digging them, and it's just I'm getting used to getting them positioned and stuff like that, so there's no shadows. Oh, see, there's just like big shadow right here. It's like the height that I've got them at and stuff, but whatever. Anyway, so much to do when you're doing everything on your own. Yeah. Chris Cam says, I think that has the old vulcanized maple neck, not roasted. You are talking about the guitar in the photo, not roasted. Sir, got them a lot darker color, which I like. Okay, so you're talking about the neck on this modern. This is a guitar that I've had for a long, long time. People are like, oh, did you get a new guitar? And it's like, actually, I've had this since 2008. So it's an old modern. This was the first Sir that I got with scrape binding, I think, which my signature guitar has. And it's pretty badass, right? It's called Root Beer Metallic, I think. I just thought if I want a shred guitar, it's going to be brown. And this guitar is ferocious, man. Like the neck on this guitar is the Guthrie profile. So it's kind of an old, it's almost like kind of a Jackson or Charvel 80s kind of neck. And it is just a ripping neck. Now, the original neck on this guitar, I had a problem with. It had a maple neck. I can't remember if it was a maple cap or not, but it did a twisty thing, which is the only Sir neck I've ever had an issue with. It just after a few years, it got weird, and they looked at it as they would with any warranty situation. If one of you guys had a guitar like that, and they looked at it and they said, you know what, we could, plane this neck and do stuff like that. Why don't we just get you a new neck for the guitar? Because we think that this neck is just a little bit dodgy. And it's the only time I've ever had an issue like that with a Sir guitar. And I said, sure. So originally, if you see videos of me playing, like for instance, I used to use this guitar on the song Scream with Chris Cornell. So if you were to Google or YouTube that or whatever, you'd find videos of me playing this guitar, but with the maple neck on it, maple fingerboard. This is a maple neck too. I forget sometimes because it just doesn't look like maple, because that's right, it's sort of vulcanized or super roasted. And they don't really do them like this anymore, but look how cool it is, especially with the root beer finish. So this is maple that's just been roasted to the point where it's basically almost charcoal. And it is cool. They don't do them like this anymore. I love the new roasted neck too, the way they look now, but they're a little bit more like a light brown kind of thing, the way that they come out. But this guitar is really fun, and I've got it in drop C sharp, so I'm actually using it on the demo that I'm doing right now for the Synergy Syn 1 stuff, just to play some really heavy stuff with it. And it really sounds great. It's one of my only guitars with really high output pickups too. It has at least the bridge pickups, it is an Aldrich. So it's a really, quite hot Alnico 5. And I like to have a few guitars around because I've got Thornbuckers in so many guitars. I do like to have some alternate guitars. So I've got like this and my EVH Wolfgang, which has the Wolfgang pickups in it, which are like a 14K Alnico 5 kind of thing. And then the Nags Steve Stevens has hot pickups in it too. So there's a few guitars I keep with hot pickups because it's cool for instant ticket to the game train sort of sound, Anyway, I'm burping. Excuse me. Cooler day here in Ontario, says Ben. Yeah, it's a little cooler here today too. Not really, but it's a little on the cool side. In the grand scheme of cool, it's not really that cool, but it's still cooler than it has been. All right. So, Jimmy says he got a Thornbucker Plus put in the bridge of his AZ this week. I wonder what guitar that is, an AZ. I don't know what that is, Jimmy, but you say you dig it. And I'm glad. Thanks, man. Thanks for getting the pickup, and I hope it sounds great, and you seem to like. Thornbucker Plus is a good thing. It's a good thing. I like it very much myself. Gordon says, "Hey Pete, usually catch these a day or two later due to gigging, but can watch live today. Nice to have you here, Gordon." And what guitar is on the screenshot for the video? Yeah, I just showed you that. The Sura Modern. And have I tried any of the Neural DSP products, says Last Saint. I have not. Not yet. I have not. We've got SD Design in the house down in San Diego. Do I know about the Mesa Barba amp? Those are amps, once again, that I've heard of and haven't checked out. So much gear now, isn't there? And I only get so much time. So my thing this week is the Synergy stuff. As far as amps, that's all I've had time to check out in the last little while, other than my own. But that's a lot, actually, because all of a sudden you can experiment with all these different modules, right? The SLO, the Engel, the Diesel, they all sound markedly different and cool. And it is interesting. I can put in the BE module, Dave's BE module, and I can dial it so that you can't hear a difference when I change in and out from the front end of my amp. So there you go. Kind of high gain, the high gain modded Marshall thing. It's like the PT I can actually pretty much exactly match the sound switching between the two, where you wouldn't know. It'd just be a blind test. It'd be so they're not really that dissimilar, I guess. At least tonally. Mike, and the design, it's kind of gain stage in front of an old Marshall circuit, really, and beyond that, it's a few tonal tweaks here and there in the circuit with different things and stuff like that, at least as far as the front end goes. Mike says, he's in the top chat. Thanks, Mike. He says, why does the G string catch on trems and somewhat the low E? You know what? It's not so much that it catches. Okay, what happens is, and Sir actually did some scientific kind of evaluation of this. And so what happens is that, where's the guitar that Strat here or something? Or here, I'll get this classic. So when you think about it, the tension of the strings over the bridge, when you move it, when you move the trem, the strings with the sort of the least amount of tension that pick up the most when you move the trem down, and this you can look at with like a microscope and stuff like that, and actually do it. But if you move the trem down, what happens is the G string lifts almost off the saddle if you're coming down quite low, more than any, like the tension, the tension on the B, and I'm dropping the trem. The G gets quite floppy pretty quick. So does the E. There's more tension on the other strings, on the A and the D and the B and the E. These are the ones that pick up the most. And so there's a little bit of movement over that bridge saddle. And that's when you release, it's now picked up, it's moved over the saddle. And then as you pick it up, it's coming back in a slightly different place. So that's what's going on with that. It's really just a matter of that tension over the bridge just isn't what it is on the other strings. So that's what happens, and that's why if you lock at the saddle, it'll prevent that from happening on those strings. So and on all the strings, really, it helps. But those are the main offenders. You're absolutely right. The G and the E. Somebody was just calling me, and I just should really return the text. A little bit of Siri. Hey, sorry, I'm just doing my live stream right now. Can we chat after? Thank you for your patience. Yeah, Roxall says that, hey, very nice of you. He says, I have not said this in a while, but want you to know I very much appreciate your live streams and videos. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Had a fun video I put out this week. Did you guys see the video with Dan from That Pedal Show? It was kind of a fun one to do, really loose and off the cuff, but we just played through a bunch of different tape delay pedals. I think that was yesterday I put it up, right? Yesterday morning. That was a lot of fun. He's a great hang. And what did we did the that was my first time playing through a Caitlin bred pedal, and what else do we have there? The MXR and the L Capstan, which are two that I've used quite a bit, but lots of fun hanging with him and jamming through some pedals. Steve says, thanks for your time today. Thank you, man, for strictly home playing and recording. Do you prefer a 212 or 412? I would almost never plug in a 412 cabinet anymore at home. Certainly not at home. I mean, if you've got a house with a big basement or something, I guess it's a different thing. You can rock out down there. But like in here, generally I use 212 cabinets a lot these days. The cab I have mic'd in the other room now is the PT15 212, the new one. And I do have a nice 412 here though that's got it's got old blackback Celestions in it, 78 blackbacks. So if I'm making a record, I might plug that in and mic that up and stuff, just because those speakers are super primo and whatnot. Somebody's up there in the top chat. It's Rory. Hey, thanks, man. He's in the UK. Thank you for doing the top chat, sir. You're too kind. Appreciate it. I appreciate you. I do. But yeah, so most of the time it's a 212 for me. I find a 212 especially with the PT15 now, because it's nice, lower power amp, and I can keep the master kind of low, and through the cabinet, it's a blast to jam with it. Just that little compact rig. But I don't really, when I'm playing at home, I don't like turning up very loud or making a ton of racket, just it's nice if generally I'm sitting down to practice or something if I'm at home. So, to be honest, most of my playing these days is for studio monitors, and hence the load boxes and all that good stuff and things I use to kind of, make it easier for me to play at a, essentially just a listening studio monitor kind of volume. I mean, I love 412s, don't get me wrong, but it's just a thing that's not super practical for jamming at home. Once in a while, it's fun. I don't know about you guys. I mean, as I got older, my ears just, if I turn it up, my ears start ringing like within 5-10 minutes. It's just like, okay, that's enough of that for now. Fun at a gig sometimes, but yeah. All right. What else we got here? Did I compare the Synergy modules to my Egnator modules? That's a great question. I haven't yet. And I heard that the Synergy stuff is backwards compatible with the Egnator stuff. Is that true? Can I plug Egnator modules into the Syn 1? I read that on the internet, but I don't believe everything I read on the internet. The Egnator module, I got some great Egnator modules, because I used to use the M4 years ago, the Egnator 4-space preamp, and I used it. What I'm doing with the Syn 1 right now, I did 2010 in my live guitar rig. I had PT100, but then I had a rack, a full 12-space rack, and I was running a wet tri-wet rig because I was crazy. And I had in the Egnator, I had a Bassman. I had some of the old Randall modules, actually, that then I think Friedman had modded some of them, but I had a Bassman module, I had a Vox module, a BE, and maybe the SLO or something like that. So I was using that years ago. But the thing I found was with those Egnator modules, I had 4 of them in the rack and then 3 channels on my amp. That was 7 master volumes. And actually, because the Egnator modules were 2 channels each, it was 11 master volumes. And then the 1 overall master volume on the back of my amp that I had to set for the overall volume. But imagine balancing all those channels, like every gig. It was just like, this is too many sounds. But 1 is kind of fun with the Syn 1. Then you get 1 thing you can add to your amp. That's kind of cool. So I'll show it in my video, but I mean, it's really neat having the clean channel on the amp, and then the cool. My amp is Fendery clean, optimized Marshall, kind of high gain Marshall on channel 2 and 3. And then to be able to add to that, like the angle, because it's different, the Powerball thing. It's got this grindy, it's darker on 1 channel and kind of brighter and deeper on the channel 2. It's distinctly different tones on the Engel module is a really good one, I find, to add if you want heavy, grindy metal kind of stuff, or maybe modern progressive, because the 2 channels do sound drastically different than one another. And if you and both good usable sounds, and if you add them both to an amp that's got a great Marshally drive already, you get all of a sudden you got a huge range of colors. So then the other one that I was using so far, well, actually, I used a bunch of them in the demo yesterday. I used the SLO and when I was recording in the HBE, but then I added the Morgan, which is kind of a voxy thing. And that's a nice one to add if you want some variations in clean. Of course, my amp's got real great Fendery full sort of optimized blackface sort of clean sound. But to add the voxy thing on the clean channel, actually, I think both channels are the same in the Morgan. I'll find it here. Because I've got a bunch of them sitting here right now. There it is. So it's called the AC. This is the one. So I think they're both exactly the same. Yeah, they are. They both got bright switches though, so you can tune one in darker if you want. I found actually the bright is quite bright. So I've got it off right now, and however I was using it, you can set up one channel to be, real clean and clear and kind of voxy, that thing, and then grind up the other one and use it for a little bit of like edge of breakup. And so that was a nice thing to add to the Fendery clean channel on my amp. I found it's a neat variation. So, and I guess then it gets into, well, I could use the 2-space one, the Sin 2 or whatever, and add more clean sounds and more dirty sounds. And now you got a pretty crazy rig once you've got a 3-channel amp with all of a sudden modules with 2. Anyways, it's bonkers. I sort of like the idea of just the simplicity of the Sin 1. And just adding a few sounds, but it's neat. It's a different thing you can do. It's not cheap necessarily, but it is more variety than you can add with, say, something like a pedal, I think. L. Scott Music, Lauren, he says he's got a Sin 2 sitting right here next to me. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Banana Hammock says, I know you answer this all the time. Sorry, but Thornbucker or Plus in a Les Paul for a darkness type Les Paul tone? I would probably get the Plus. I don't know what the darkness recorded with, but I do love some of their guitar sounds, actually. I have no idea what they play, but I think they just kind of play Les Pauls, and it's probably pretty stock, But yeah, just the Plus is a great pickup. Standard one's great, too, in a Les Paul. That's what I've got the standard one, I think, in my R9 reissue. I've just got a set of regular Thornbuckers in there, and they work great in that guitar. Surf by says, nice haircut. Thanks. I got a haircut finally yesterday. It was like getting out of control. I was borderline like maybe I should just grow it. One more kick at the can. Grow it out. And then I didn't. SLO is top on my list, says G-Man Music. Yeah, it's good. It sounds cool. Sort of like the plug-in modules on the old Seymour Duncan amp, says Kurt. Sort of, yeah. A little bit similar to that, I guess. That was one of the modular things that you could get. But yeah, the modules, they're just preamps, really. And then the Sin chassis, Synergy chassis has a chassis? Did I say that? God, chassis. I'm such an idiot. Chassis. I was reading it in my head. Do you guys ever do that? Do you ever see like the word spelled out in your head and then you say it and you go, wait a minute, that's how it looks spelled, but that's not actually how you pronounce it. That's my brain sometimes. I'm a dummy. I need more coffee. Anyway, the chassis. The Sin 1 chassis has a tube in it, as they all do. And you've kind of got a shared front end, like input stage. And then you plug the module in and it has the rest of the circuit, supposedly, of the preamp of a specific amplifier. That's the way it works. Yeah, and most of the modules will have 2 channels in them, so you can switch between a couple different sounds. It's interesting because it might sort of beg the question, well, if there's that input stage that's shared in the chassis, how can that be? Because different amps have different input stages. And so how do you copy the circuit of an amp when the input stage stays the same, right? There's a switch on the bottom of every module that's like cathode follower or something like that. And by switching that, it allows you to tune them. It's got something to do with matching it to that input stage in the chassis so that it's like the original amp, supposedly. That's, as I understand it, that's what I've been told. But Anyway, and once again, it was sort of the idea I think was born out of the old Randall stuff, which was designed by Bruce Egnater, modular preamp that he had many years ago, which was a great sounding thing, and I still have mine here. Yeah. Your How to Be a Pro Musician series inspired me so much. After just a few months of putting it all into practice, I've been able to quit my job and go full time. Wow, that's from Gordon, as a guitar player without loss. Dude, that's amazing. That's great to hear. That is the best news I've heard all day. It makes me feel real good. Thanks. That's great to hear. I wonder what you're doing, like how you did that transition and what types of gigs you're doing and stuff. That'd be interesting. You should make a YouTube video, put it out, and say, "Well, this was my journey." You know, it'd be a great story. This is what I'm doing now, and I was doing this 6 months ago or whatever, and now I'm here. You know, I'd watch that. I'd love to see what you're up to. It's definitely interesting. Great to hear, man. Congratulations. Honestly, it's super cool. Chris says that when demoing your PT15 amp, do you go straight into your recording interface or in conjunction with a mic pre? Also, would you recommend adding room simulation or ambience to the IR? Well, if you want to add some room to it, it's always reverb's always a good thing, or a little bit of room in the DAW, whatever you're using. I use a few different reverb plugins if I want to add a room-like, realistic kind of room-like thing. Use Ocean Way Studios a lot. It's a great UA plugin for adding room ambience. But that's generally when I'm mixing. Don't really play through it. I've got actually the preset that I've got that just comes up in a sort of template I've got in Logic, has this stock new reverb, which is called Alchemy or something like that. Whatever the new reverb that came out in Logic like a year ago, which is pretty nice. And I just made like a small room in there. So I'll use that sometimes. As far as going into a mic pre, you can, but you can plug it right into your interface. You might notice a little difference if you plug into like sometimes I run mine into, I've got it actually running right now into a Maris mic pre, and then line out of that into my interface. If you run into a Neve type thing with a transformer in it, you might notice like it gets a little fatter or something, but it's not really necessary. You can just literally take the output and run right into the input on, say, I use my Apollo, and it'll work great like that. Experimentation, give it a try and see if it's going to be a minor difference. Unless you drive the hell up out of the mic pre and get it it's clipping and saturated, then you might be able to get some interesting blended kind of driven things that way. But do you have any of Dave's modules, says Brett, for the the Synergy, I guess. I've got the HB and the BE, and I have all the modules here actually, because they wanted me to make a demo, so they sent me everything to try. And like I say, I wanted to use it primarily with my amp to add sounds to the amp. I think that's kind of maybe been an underappreciated thing about the thing, that it's one of the most interesting things to me, because say you've got a Fender Hot Rod DeVille or something with a effects loop and crappy drive channel. You can now add a really good drive channel to your amp. It just makes whatever gear you've got, it allows you to augment it and sort of get improved tones, I think. So that's interesting. So I'm going to mainly focus on that in this first video. They'd like me to make videos for all the different modules. I mean, we'll see how far I go with it. Also, another interesting aspect is adding it to something like an Axe Effects or a Helix, where you can use it, incorporate it via the effects loops on those units, and now you've got a real tube front end going into your modeler, and that's kind of an interesting kind of hybrid approach to maybe adding some real tube tone or whatever to your so I think I'm probably videos where I'm doing that is going to happen. Thanks for suggesting Adam Neely and Paul Davids use real eggs in their odd time juggling video while at Toman. That was funny. That's Tim up in the top chat. It was funny, right? I saw it happen. You know what's really funny is they practiced for days throwing these eggs. This is Adam and Paul, two really brilliant dudes that are YouTubers that got into doing polyrhythms by throwing egg shakers back and forth at one another. So it was the geekiest, nerdiest thing I've ever seen, and it was really funny and awesome. But it was funny because they were doing it with egg shakers, and then they decided on the last day that, okay, we're going to make a video, and we're going to do this with real eggs now that we've practiced. And so they got all set and took a real egg from breakfast at the hotel. This was the last day of the thing at Toman. And they go outside, and Adam throws the egg to Paul, and he drops it. It was the first thing he did was drop the egg, and it broke. And I was like, that's it, done. That's the video right there. Perfect. But anyways, I'm not sure if that video's up or not, but it was geeky in the extreme and super funny. Those guys are great, man. I miss those dudes. It was really fun week hanging out with all those people. Good folks. Yeah, good time. So look forward to doing it again. It's cool that the synergy modules will work with my Egnator Mod 50. See, I guess you guys have tried this and it works, eh? I didn't know. I mean, I assume Bruce had a lot to do with the design of the new because boutique amp distribution there, they've got Egnator involved under their umbrella and stuff. So I guess Bruce probably helped design the chassis and all that. Metalhead Hippie is in the top chat. Hey, dude. He says, Pete, can you talk about the 4-cable method, the hows and whys and whatnots of it? Okay. 4-cable method. So with something like a Helix, essentially you can run your guitar into the Helix and then come out of the send of an effect loop on the Helix. I would use effect loop 4. That send will go to the front end of your amplifier. Let me stop right there and just say that the most important thing to know at that juncture is you need to use an isolation transformer on that send in order to not have a ground loop. So the send coming out of effect loop 4, use something like a Palmer isolation transformer or a EBTech hum eliminator, or a cable that somebody like Dave Friedman could custom make you with a little ISO transformer in it. Got a few of them here. I've showed them before. I'll show them again. Got one here somewhere. Let me see. There it is right there. That was convenient. So this cable, get Dave to make me these sometimes. These are great things to have around. You can see this end is big. And it's because it's got an isolation transformer built into the end. That's what that black box is right there. And that just breaks the ground so that you're not going to get a ground loop. Multiple paths to ground create issues. With something like the Helix and an amplifier both grounded, you get issues. So getting a cable like that made is easy. You could ask somebody like Friedman you could just have them make one for you, custom order it. Or it's the same to get a Palmer isolation transformer or the EBTech hum eliminator. Like I said, they make a 2-channel one that's really nice. So these are just boxes with an input and an output on them. You just put them in the middle using 2 guitar cables, basically, and it breaks the ground loop. Okay, so having said that, effects loop 4 send out of something like a Helix going into input of your amp. You're going to take your amp's effect send back to the return of effect loop 4. And then you're going to take the output of the Helix and go back into the effect return of your amplifier. And that's 4-cable method. And what that allows you to do is essentially you're using the Helix, and you have to turn on effect loop 4, and that sort of switches in the front end or preamp of your amplifier. And all it allows you to do is really use effects in front of your amplifier and then effects in loop of your amplifier. Whoa, somebody did a big top chat. Somebody's up there. Just 1 second. I will get to you, good sir or lady. Probably sir, judging from my demographics. But anyways, that's how you do it. And it's great. You can use something like the... I do it with this thing a lot lately. The Hx effects. So this only has 2 effects loops in it. and you'll take the, I use the second loop. The reason that you use the second loop is then you can put a pedal in loop 1, or in the case of the big Helix, like loop 1, 2, 3, you could have pedals and run them. And then you want the effect loop 4 to be the last one used to send to your amplifier, because then those pedals are coming in front of your amp where they're kind of designed to be used if you decide to do that. So that's a thing. But something like this is killer for 4 cable, by the way. I mean, I've been having a great time using this thing. It's so cool, and I can use the channel switch functions on it to channel switch my amp. Evidently, that doesn't work with every amplifier with these, but it works fine with mine. So if you've got a PT15 or PT amp, you know, or I guess it won't work on the PT100 because it's MIDI, but you could use MIDI out of this in that case to, so same difference. But these are terrific for 4 cable. If anybody wants to experiment with simple multi-effects, and that's a terrific unit to do it with. Axe effects, you can use Axe effects to do it too. You know, the FX8 will work great, or you could use regular Axe effects is a little funny using it for cable, I find, due to like sort of, I don't know if it's impedance or level or what it is, but the FX8, that's what it was designed to do, so it'll work great. The Helix is terrific for it. Who's up there in the top chat that went crazy? It's Own Tone 5. Thank you so much, man. Hey, I really appreciate it. I'm kidding about you going crazy. You're too kind. You say, think about interviewing the person that quit their job and went full-time musician. Yeah, that's a great idea. That is, if they don't have a YouTube channel of their own, it would fit into your pro musician series. You're right. I could do that. That's not a bad idea at all. They can feel free to contact me. You know, email form on my website's the best way, generally speaking. As we started off saying, sometimes the instant messenger and Instagram and all that stuff get overwhelmed. I don't have time to answer everything. But better move down here. Thanks again for the top chat, man. That was super big of you. I appreciate it. I do. Thanks for being here. Have I tried the Synergy modules into the Helix rack with IRs? No, not yet, but that's something I want to do for sure. I also want to try them actually with Wall of Sound, which has those power amp simulators in it. I want to try a couple different things. I want to try them with Wall of Sound, and I want to try them with my PT100 amplifier plugin in UA, because I can disable the preamp in my amp and just use the power amp simulation as well as the IRs and cab sim. So that might be another video right there, using Synergy module with the PT100 plugin from UA to get different preamp sounds, kind of simulating exactly what you do in the real world actually with it if you're interfacing it with an amplifier. But I will, yeah, I am going to try all this. I think some people have made videos of using it with the Helix and, you know, inserting it in one of the effects loops and all that. What speakers do I recommend when using impulse responses as neutral sound as possible, says Chris. Well, speakers aren't really neutral. You know, guitar speakers, no matter what they are they all got a character to them, a real strong character. And I like that character, so I don't really look for the neutral. That's just me, but I guess a neutral speaker, they're not neutral at all, but one that doesn't have a ton of, you know, driven weird character, but you know, like a greenback or something, when you drive it up does its own thing. So does a blue, something like an EV, like a 12L, you know, something like that would be the most sort of, I don't know, full range. You know, you don't want full range with guitar, right? Because it would be bright and weird. But as much as a 12-inch speaker can be kind of a, you know, pure or whatever, I guess it's something like an EV in a 112 or something would put where it's got the least amount of sort of cabinet interaction, and yeah, like a closed back EV 112 or maybe open back. I don't know, something like that. And I, generally speaking, I like I say, I mean, I love speakers with character and color. My favorite speakers are greenbacks, so I love grind and that woody natural thing that they do, you know. Jason Wade says, good morning, sir. Good morning, Jason. He says, what flavor of coffee are we having? Actually, I just did the espresso this morning, and I put 2 capsules in and made a big cup because I was short on time when I got here. Did you guys know if you got an espresso machine that the capsules are off patent now? So you can get them from Illy or from Trader Joe's has them for $3.99. They sell like the capsules for Nespresso now. That's a great quick fix. So these are the Trader Joe's ones, which are okay. The Illy ones are outstanding. Actually, I like them better than the Nespresso ones. The Illy Lungo ones. If anybody's got an espresso, check them out. Check them out. Check them out. Okay. Moving down. Ben Coombe says, leave a thumbs up to show support for Pete. I appreciate that, Ben. Thanks. Thank you so much, Ben, for being my moderator as well. I appreciate the help. I do. How often do you tweak your truss rod? Is your room temperature controlled? Says Darren. I just, whenever it's got an issue, I've got a truss rod wrench within arm's length at all times, it seems. I have done it in the middle of a song on stage. If I've got a break of, if like the bridge you're not playing on, or there's a breakdown or something, I'll run over to my tech and go, give me the truss rod wrench. My guitar's freaking me out right now. Because with the Sur, it's like you can get the easy access, like instant. Mahogany necks, which my guitar is, they tend to move a little more. My guitar is pretty damn stable for what it is, but they will move. You'll notice like mahogany will move more than maple. So on a Les Paul or anything like that, they tend to, it's just what I've noticed. But I'll do it whenever I notice it's weird. And if I pick up the guitar and the action's weird, or I hear it buzzing down low where it normally doesn't, then I know it's weird instantly, and I just reach for the wrench. What are the lights? Kurt says. Are you talking about the new lights that I got? I can't show you. I guess I can actually. I could take a picture and show you what they look like. I got them off Amazon. Really, they're much smaller and more compact and adjustable than the ones I had. I think this is what you're talking about. I hope this is what you're talking. Oh, this isn't going to work. Well, sort of. They look like that. They're like little LED panels, and I've got two of them, one on either side. And I'm still getting them adjusted. They're not real big, so you got to get them in the right spots. You don't get shadows and stuff because they're not like cover a ton of. But I just like them way better. I had these big umbrella ones up that dominated the whole back of the room and were difficult to turn on and off. I think these are better. Pete, did the quake shake your studio? Says G-Man Music. Yeah. So the other day, the 7.1. Which if you've never been through a quake, if you don't live in California, you hear 7.1 close to LA. Well, it's 200 miles away, so that's not real close. But you feel it. You just if you're right on top of a 7.1, your house is gonna probably fall down. If you're 200 miles away, you get a subtle rolling that is concerning. I don't know how else to describe it, but I've got a cloud in here above my head, at the studio, like it's like a big panel above me, and that thing was swaying back and forth, and the guitars were swaying back and forth, and then I went out in my hallway, and the lights in the hallway are swaying around. You go outside, and the power lines are like, it's freaky. And it literally went on that long where I had time to. I'm an idiot in earthquakes. I kind of sit and I realize it's happening, and then I go like, I should probably get up. And then I get up and I kind of walk and I'll go to it's like if it was bad, I'd be dead by then, but there ain't no duck and cover for me. I guess I could get under this desk. Should probably do that next time. This is pretty solid. Food for thought for myself. But yeah, I literally got up, watched the cloud swing, went in the hallway, watched the light swing, went outside, watched everything swinging, and it was still going. It was like the longest one the other day, that 7.1, long rolling one. Occasionally they'll feel like your house gets picked up and dropped. It's a different sensation entirely. But yeah, kind of crazy. Let's just hope they abate. Let's see. Matthew says he's a fan. Hi, Matthew. He says you got a Grover Jackson GJ2 guitar with habanero pickups. Have you ever played one of the USA models from about 2017, or have you ever met Grover? I have met Grover. Grover works with Dave Friedman now, and they're in close contact all the time, and I'm friends with Dave, and occasionally if I'm hanging with Dave Grover's around and stuff like that. So I've met him a few times. And I've got Jackson from, 86, the one with the city painted on it. That is right after they went to the Jackson logo on the headstock for bolt-ons. And Jackson became like the US, like if a guitar was made in the San Dimas factory at that point, it had said Jackson on it. And then Charvel became as they started making them in Japan, which were really good guitars, actually. Those first Japanese Charvels. I had a red, kind of a dark cherry candy red Model 3, I think was the model, or maybe it was Model 4. I think it was Model 3. Single humbucker, volume and tone, I think, in a 3. And a single humbucker? Was it a single humbucker? Or was it 2? God, I can't remember now. Might have been 2 humbuckers. God, that was a good guitar, though. It had the hockey stick headstock on it and stuff. But other than that, I wish it had a Strat headstock. But man, what a good guitar. The neck was ferocious on that guitar. Always remember. Anyways, what's the word I'm looking for? I digress. That's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, Grover seems like a nice cat. Can't you just use any of the mini preamps out there to add channels to an existing amp? I still don't see the benefits of the synergy. Well, that's from Steven. Steven, the deal is that it's got a foot switch. And so what you do is you plug into the synergy first, and then you interface it kind of almost like 4-cable method with your amp in the effects loop. So send out of the synergy goes to the front of the amp. Effects loop send back to the synergy. And then a send out of the synergy back to the amp's return. So now you've plugged into the synergy, and then you've inserted into your amp's effects loop, and then you've got a foot switch that allows you to bypass the synergy. So it's got a buffer in the front end. I guess tube buffer or whatever as you're running into it, and then you hit the front end of your amp. And you might ask yourself at that point, well, now you've used your amp's effects loop. Can you still add effects? And the synergy has an effects loop in it, and that's where you would put the effects now if you want to use an effect loop. And it'll still work with your amplifier's front end, switched end. So the advantage is that at any given time, you can use your amp's preamp as you always could, and then you can switch in the synergy preamp and use it, right? Otherwise, you'd have to run out of whatever preamp you've got into the amp's effects return, and then you wouldn't have your amp's front end anymore. Now, there is a way that you can do it, but you have to use switcher, like a RJM is how I used to do it, because I did it with the M4. I used to use, I used to essentially switch in the front end of the M4 in front of my amp. But so there's ways you can do it, but you need more gear with just the synergy thing and a module. If you want to say there's Syn 1 or Syn 2 rack chassis and a module or 2 modules, that's all you need. You don't need anything else, and you can switch it in and out with your amp. So I hope that explains that. Yeah. Do you ever just crash at your studio? That couch looks comfy. Not yet, but it'll probably happen. I do take naps occasionally. Some night when I'm working hard on a project I got to get done, I assume I'll just go back there and crash. I think I have a PT100 coming my way, says Chris. That's awesome. I hope you like it. Been my main amp squeeze for 10 years. SD Design has Nescafe coffee. Come on, man. He says he needs to buy a Keurig. Yeah, Keurigs are pretty good for the dough. I mean, I went and got one at Target for the studio actually here a while ago. I got an espresso and a Keurig here, and the Keurig's pretty good for like $70 on sale or something at Target. It's not bad. I know coffee snobs will be like, "Oh, pod coffee, how could you?" But it's good. It's decent gets the job done. Not for some people. If you're a pour over kind of, the water temperature has to be just right. Percentage of coffee to, blah, blah, blah. I like that. I like snobby coffee sometimes. I do. How long till the PT15 release? Well, I'm not supposed to say dates, but we are now, it's a week, give or take. So, and then they'll announce it a little more, but just barely. When you see me next week here, the next thing that will happen after that will be the amp will be available. Santa Rosa is in the house. That's Joe Peasy for Sheezy. Can you share some tips on getting nice clean sounds from the Hx Stomp? I struggled to get a good sound through headphones. Okay, I like the Lone Star one. I don't know what they call it, Texas something or other. I can't remember, but it's nice for cleans. So start with that amp model. Change the impulse response to something, maybe a Celestion, maybe like a G1265, something like that. Or you could try something else, experiment with some different ones. But the 65 is pretty nice for cleans in like an open back. Like I like the Sir Hedgehog cab. It's an open back cab, and try like a 57 121 blend, high gain blend. Start with that. See what you think of that sound with that Lone Star. And then use something like you can use a delay after the amp to get a little bit of space. Like a fruit fly flying around in here or something. You can get a like a it's a nice thing to do to get a little bit more space in the sound without adding necessarily like reverb or anything like that, and get a little bit of stereo stuff going without modulation. Take a reverb block and put it, a delay block, the simple delay in the line 6, and put it after the amp, and then use 0 feedback and use 30 millisecond delay on one side and 40 millisecond delay on the other side, stereo delay, and then blend it in at about 15%. And you'll just, all of a sudden the sound will go and get bigger and just sound like wider in your headphones and stuff. And it's a nice effect. And then if you want to add a little room reverb after that, but it's a different thing than adding reverb. The sound actually widens and gets bigger, and it's because of that delay on one side and delay on the other and the little offset. And you get this kind of just bigger sound, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. So those are a few things you can do. And a little compression is always a good thing. Put a compressor in front and then mess with it. I like, in the line 6 stuff, I like the studio compressor or the Keeley style one. And mess with it until you can get it. You switch it in and it just sounds like your sound gets pushed forward a bit, but it doesn't sound overly compressed. That's what I do. Just make it sound like so that you don't notice when it's on, but you notice when it's off. If that makes sense. It's not like obvious compression, but it is pushing the sound forward and just compressing a little bit and fattening things, making everything a little easier to play. That's the best I can do, telling you sort of what I would do. Have you ever tried Delaney Amps? And if so, what was your experience using them, Cliff? Well, the Delaney that I tried and I almost bought was a super group. So that's the real shit from the late 60s. 100-watt Laney super group. It was so killer, and it sounded like Van Halen to me. I mean, it was just like, it was like a great, it was loud. I mean, it was 100 watts. It was incredible. And I went to the store to buy it after kind of coveting this thing for 2 weeks and playing through it really loud a few times. And somebody bought it earlier that day. I went down there with money. So I almost owned that Laney supergroup, and it was bought from under me. I was so bummed. I was ready to get it. Yeah, it was kind of around the time I was looking, I think, for or maybe it was after, but I was looking. Yeah, it was. Maybe this was 97 or 98 or something. But I was always looking for an original Marshall, like a Plexi something or other, Plexi 50, Plexi 100 for a good price, and I could never find one. My original search for one, I remember going to Black Market Music. If anybody ever lived in LA, it was an amazing store that was like a graveyard for old kind of. They had cool vintage stuff in there, but it was also like a lot of stuff that had been modded or altered, or vintage Strats that had been repainted, or amps that had been modded. And at any given time, they'd have 12 or 13 old Marshall heads in there that were all like messed with by Lee Jackson or something. This is late 90s. So I remember going in there and looking for an old Marshall, and just everyone I played sounded like shit. They all farty, just bad. I couldn't find one that sounded good. And then I went in Guitar Center in Sherman Oaks around that same week, and they had a Top Hat Implexador, which is the one that's sitting right down there at the bottom of my rack. And I plugged it in, and it had a dodgy input jack. so it was intermittent. But when it worked, you could kind of jiggle it and get it to work. It sounded incredible. I was like, this is the amp that I've been looking for. This is the vintage Marshall I've been looking for that I can't find. And it was tagged at, it was used, and it was tagged at like $1,000 or $900. And the salesman came in. I said, look, it doesn't work, you know. It was, and I knew it was just because I knew Brian from Top Hat really well, so I knew I could take it down and get it fixed. But I said, can you give me a discount, because I'm gonna have to get it fixed or whatever. It doesn't work. He was like, oh yeah. So he went, and it was like $750 out the door or something. I got it for. So that's what I got that in Plexador for. It was a great amp for that much money. And actually, when I put it up against any of my, like I've tried it compared to numerous old Marshalls and stuff, and it is right in there with, if you turn the master all the way up and use the Plexi mode on it, and it sounds killer. I mean, it does that thing in spades. 50-watt Marshall. So finally, I eventually got that. I got a real 7150 watt or whatever there. But anyways, I just remember that Laney, like back in those days, looking for an old Marshall. I could never seem to find one that was in good repair. The reality is, any of those heads, I know now that any of those heads in black market, I could have gotten and just looked to make sure they had original transformers and stuff in it, and they probably all needed to be recapped and gone through and retubed and stuff. I could have gotten with any one of those and then brought it to Friedman or something, and it would have sounded great. Had it with probably just some minor touch-ups, minor details. But anyways. Yeah. That's the only Laney that I've ever really. So now they've got those new ones. That Super Group 30, or the vintage kind of 30-watt one, that looks really cool to me. It does look really nice. But you're probably in the UK, Cliff, or maybe in Europe or something. We don't have them here. You don't see dealers in the States. Like, nobody has Laney. I was wondering about that. I've spoken to them at like a while ago at what was it? Gear University. I talked to a couple of the Laney guys that were there. They've got some nice new pedals that I'd like to do demos for and stuff, but just the gear in the States, you don't see it that much. Yeah. I'm so far back in the chat. Somebody's talking about the root beer modern. It says it looks so much like my signature, except for the pickups, and it sort of does. I mean, it's a modern, so it's 24 frets. The body being longer, but yeah, the scrape binding. I guess anytime you do scrape binding with a dark fingerboard and 2 humbuckers, it's going to look pretty similar to my guitar. But this is the first one I ever actually got with the scrape binding on it. It does have amazing. Every time I pick that guitar up, I'm like, I want to play it because the neck is pretty damn cool. SD Design is in the top chat. Thank you, sir. Today's coffee on me. Thanks, man. Question: any thoughts on the early 1980s Fender Super Champ? So I believe Paul Rivera designed, and kind of a coveted amp, I think, right? Those early 80s Super Champs. What amp is comparable? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe nothing, It was kind of a unique amp had a gainy channel in it, right? Didn't Lukather play through one of those or something to cut some solos? Maybe like I thought maybe an early Toto solo was cut on like Hold the Line or something, or maybe Rosanna or something was cut on one of those amps, the solo. Maybe somebody will know that and they can put it in the chat. But anyways, I just know that they were designed by Rivera and designed to have kind of a clean and then a gainy channel. I've played through one a couple times, and that's it. Don't really remember it very well. Leo says hello to everyone from Paris. And yep. Moving down. I'm going to try and speed up here a little bit. Interest in the Constellation Fuzz pedal. Was the treble boost setting usable, says Phil. Would I be needing another pedal to do that? It was super usable. I found it to be a little bit like not as gainy as some of my other treble boosters. Like the tone was really similar to, say, my Divided by 13 or something, but it wasn't quite as nasty and didn't boost quite as much, but it was really usable and really good. And the pedal does so much stuff that it's kind of a no-brainer. So that's the Constellation from Crazy Tube Circuits. Really terrific pedal with all those different circuits in it. And the combination, I think it's a combination treble boost fuzz, right? In that one, the last setting, which was really cool. And that kind of reminded me, it's the only other pedal I know that has treble booster and fuzz other than the BAE Hot Fuzz, which is sort of equally as bitchin'. It's just a one sound fuzz and a treble booster, but what a great pedal, that BAE hot fuzz is. Really great sounding. A combination of fuzz and treble boost is incredible sounding. In my experience, it's just like this ripping solo tone that is super cool. Scott is up in the top chat. He says, to help you buy a reusable pod for your Keurig, just want to help the environment. I didn't know you could do that. Can you do that? So they make a reusable pod for the Keurig and you can fill it with coffee? Is that right? That's good to know. And yeah, it will help the environment a little. I would totally be down with that. Just buy bags of coffee if you can. I didn't know you can get them. It's thanks for educating me, Scott, and for doing the top chat as well. Where do you get them from? Can you get them anywhere? I suppose I could. That's the easy answer is Amazon. Reusable Keurig pod. There, it'll pop up if I search that. I know it. Yes. The neck reminds me of a Tootsie Roll of that vulcanized neck, I guess. Yeah, I can see that. Hi, Pete. Love the germanium fuzz cleanup video, says Christopher. Do you know if OCD is germanium? No, I don't think so. It's just probably like I have no idea what it is, op amps or something. I have no idea, but it's not germanium. If a pedal's germanium, they'll usually make a big deal about it, and it won't play nice with a lot of other things in front of it, generally speaking. How is it roasted, Pete? Doug's pickups are great. That's from Flipper Carlin. The neck on that guitar, they put it in a oven, essentially like a kiln or oven, and it gets heated up to a really high temperature, and it roasts the wood. What is the trem on that? That's the standard. I think it's a Godot Floyd. I think is that what Sir used. I mean, it's really old, so that guitar was 10 years old now. But I think that's what it is. Yeah. Kurt LeBlanc says harsh light. Well, I can change it, but I'm still figuring these things out. I guess it is kind of harsh, eh? Like when I look at it here, but that's the light on my desk actually that you're seeing there. I got a light right there. That's still harsh. See, keep in mind my webcam is, it's just the one that's in the computer. That probably looks a little better though, right? I've got a desk lamp on here that was lighting up my keyboard and it was kind of blowing back. Yeah. This I think actually looks pretty good right now for, I don't know. Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be actually pretty natural. Maybe a little bright, but other than that, not too bad. Do you have an Hx 3? I do. It's right here. I feel bad because I messed with it very little since I've gotten it. I'm using the AX8 a lot because I'm doing that. I'm playing yet another Queen gig coming up next week where I'm subbing for Tristan Avakian in the Ultimate Queen Celebration. And for that gig, I'm using the AX8 because that's what he uses. So I started out with his patches and they sound terrific to me. So I am using the Axe effects quite a bit these days. Practicing with it at home. I gotta go home and go over songs. Man, I'll tell you what, it's like playing. The last gig I did with him was 13 tunes. This is a full set, so it's like 20, including the live Brian May guitar solo. I am working my ass off, like learning that stuff. It's doing a whole set of Queen music is. You can't. It's like playing classical music. It's just a lot of chromaticism, and you've got to be on your game. It's a lot of the in between frets. For a bonehead rock guitar player, there's a lot of E flat and F and B flat going on. It's just like it's an education. I keep telling myself it's really good for me, but it is a lot of work. I know the gigs will be fun when I get out on stage, but the amount of shedding that I have to do at home to be on with no rehearsal and to go out and play 20 Queen songs. Wish me luck. It'll all be over next week by the time you see me. I'm sure it'll be fun. I just gotta practice over the next few days really hard. Hey Pete, have a couple coffees on me, says Alex. He's in the top chat. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing the top chat. Too kind. If you had a space for something like 6 to 8 amps at a home studio, no wattage limit, what would be the benchmark foundational amps for you? Well, you're kind of looking at it really. There's about 8 that I have. I mean, the PT15 covers so much ground for me now. So, I mean, if you got to have, truth be told, if I had a PT15, some of these Synergy modules and a real Vox, I'm done. It's like, that's so much stuff. But a great thing that I really don't have here right now is like, well, I have a Bella. So that, although my Bella's got a tube issue right now, so I got to get it looked at. But having a good combo, I was just going to say, something in the vein of a deluxe or, something like that. Having a real AC 15 or AC 30 style amp, something like that. Now you got those sort of Fender Vox combo flavors covered. That's a really important thing, I think. Then something like a PT15. Then so what I've got in here right now is a SL68, a 71 Marshall. Those are a little redundant. So if you only had to have one, one great Marshall style amp. I've got the Sir Hedgehog, which is Fendery dumply. I do have an AC30 there essentially, which is my divided by 13 RSA 31, so I could plug that into. I've got a couple cabs that are open back that have blues in them. That'll get me an AC30 top boost thing essentially. Top hat is yet another Marshall, so that's redundant. I've got this Laboga amplifier here, which I have yet to really mess with that much, but it's from Poland. These nice folks wanted to send me one to try out, and I said, okay. And they sent me one to check out, and so it's right there. And it's a really good sounding amp. Kind of it sort of sounds like Dave's BE amp, I think, 50-watt hot rod Marshall with a clean channel. Sounds really good. The little bit I've had time to play through it, I just haven't had that much time. I've got a 50-watt Bassman here, which is my old 66 Bassman. It's a really, really good sounding amp that would serve well as a Fender, basic clean. To crunchy sort of JTM 45-ish if you crank it up. That's it, really. So yeah, what does that leave me with? I'd need Fender Vox Marshall high gain, basically. I did a whole article actually on this in Premier Guitar on I think I call it my 4 bass tones. Not bass guitar, but bass core sort of guitar tones that I need. Fender, Vox, Marshall, high gain, lead, modern stuff, So that could be a lot of different amps, I think, but those are the main the main food groups for me, and that's it. And yes, something like the synergy stuff will get you in the ballpark, with that. But once again, you got to keep in mind a big, huge component of of the tone in any sort of studio environment of getting those sounds and really having it sound authentic is the cabinet and the speakers. So there's sort of no substitute for, there is a substitute, which is IRs and doing it in the sort of digital world. But there's, something like an aux goes a long way, or reactive load using some IRs. The aux is nice because you can mess with the room mics and all that. So if you're working on a budget and you need to get a lot of tones out of a home studio, having something Fendery, something Voxy, something Marshally, something high gain, and then something like an aux or a reactive load, or maybe both, and then maybe have one cab that you can get a lot of sounds in. It's just always, if you want to get a real Vox tone, you kind of need the open back with blues, either virtually or really. No way around that. So it's a little earthquakey here, says Jennifer. Yeah, it's, I'm constantly feeling a little bit of shaking going on. After that first one, I guess there was tons of aftershock. It was like 14 or 1500 aftershocks. Essentially, like the ground never stopped shaking after that, I think. Have you heard anything lately about your Sir Aura? John's just got so much to do. It's just sitting there on the wall and at Sir. And someday when he gets the time, I think I would feel bad if I got mine before so many people are waiting on those guitars, it's like, I think he wants to finish the 100, get them all done and out and, get them to everybody. All right. I feel like I should almost go down all the way to the bottom of the chat, but, cause I'm so far behind, but, Joe says, thoughts on EMG active pickups. Love them on bass. Really love them on bass guitar. I haven't really messed with them much on electric guitar. Be nice to have one guitar, I guess, with them, like an 81, 85 set, something like that. And it would be nice to have a Strat with the kind of David Gilmour 80s setup. I think that would be kind of cool. With the preamp and all that, and they have like a circuit in it that allowed you to sort of scoop the sound as well, or mid boost, something like that. I would like one guitar like in the studio with that going on, just to have. But I've never really been an active pickup guy. I always felt like growing up, especially in the 80s, I was always a Seymour Duncan guy in the 80s. Never DiMarzios either, really. I've owned very few DiMarzio pickups, just a few. And I loved Duncans and the kind of, you know, I liked organic Van Halen, I liked organic Plexi Marshall, that kind of, sound that's just always what I wanted out of a guitar growing up, ACDC and stuff. So it was like I was a Alnico Magnet passive pickup kind of guy growing up. And all that said, I've lately, like my bass, for example, has active pickups and active preamp in it. It sounds amazing. So for bass, I've also got a friend's bass here. My buddy John Button lent me his kind of kit P bass that he put together out of an old 60s body and a Warmoth neck, and it's got an EMG P pickup in it. Sounds great, that guitar. So something about on bass, just the clarity and the, seems to work really good. The active pickups, I wouldn't hesitate to use them there. Any advice for a guy who's about to move into an apartment after playing my tube amp cranked all the time? Well, that's a tough move, man. Luckily, you've got lots of options these days with load boxes, and a reasonable option is just get a sur-reactive load, start using that with headphones, or run the output into a set of powered speakers and just start getting used to playing at TV volume. But you could still use your cranked amps is the good news, and it should sound and feel. Plenty of videos out of it online now. It's the same thing that comes in my PT15. If you try the PT15, if you want a great, you can still get the power tube distortion and do everything. You can just do it at kind of line level and control the volume. So there's options. Bam Mosey says he doesn't have hot pickups and in general prefer lower output. I agree. In general, I prefer the PAF stuff. That's my whole bag, but it is nice to have every now and then for metal. It's generally for metal. If I'm playing like something that I want to sound really down tuned and heavy, or just really hot, I'll just grab a guitar with the active pickups, or not the active pickups. Sorry, that's what we were just talking about. The hot pickups. Like I say, either my Wolfgang or my Sir or my Steve Stevens Nags are kind of my go-to hot pickup guitars around here. Yeah. Fender American Vintage 57, all soldered well, no cold joints, and I have a ground problem. Can I help? That's Hools. When you turn off the volume on the guitar, does the buzz go away? Because then it's not a ground problem. It's just the noisy single coil pickups. So if you got a bunch of noise, roll down the volume on the guitar, and if the noise completely goes away, oh no, that's just single coil noise. And then you got to start, if that's bothering you, you got to start looking at some noiseless pickups or a couple other options, something like the Illich system, or like John would say, get a Sir, because it comes with a noiseless system built in. But yeah, if there is still, when you roll the volume all the way down on the guitar, if there's still lots of buzzing going on, you'll know you got some sort of ground issue. And I would just take it to a tech of some sort, make sure that you got to ground the claw in the back. But I'm not a tech, so I'm not the best about this stuff. It's a better question for somebody super familiar with techie stuff. Metalhead Hippie is in the top chat. He says, how does it feel to be Pete Thorn and do what you do? Today, exhausting. No, it feels great. It's, I'm just a dude like anybody else. So I go through all the same challenges, ups, downs, fears, insecurities, highs and lows, as probably just about anybody, I guess. But it feels pretty damn good overall. I'm lucky to be where I am, and it feels good. I'll say that. Let's see. I'm going to go to the end of the chat here, guys. So ask again, because I got so far back and then it jumped to the end anyway. So I'm just going to kind of move close to the end here. And after Alex's top chat comment, that's where I will start. Did I see the Brian May guitar for sale at Rivington Guitars? Oh, that's Chris. Chris, did you send that to me? I think you did, like maybe in an email or something. I did see it. It's a guild, right? I've got and some of the Oscillation Overdrive is asking how many songs. It's about 20, something like that, for the full set, including the full Brian May kind of delay guitar solo. So I've learned how to do that. The Brian May guitar that was at Rivington's was a guild. I have the one. I don't have it here. It's at home right now because I'm practicing with it at home. But it's a RS Guitars, Red Special Guitars that is this custom jobby that John Shanks actually lent to me. I think if I was to do more of this, like if it continues and if it seems like it's going to be a thing for a while, I may have one just built. That's what Tristan did, actually, the main guitar player that does this gig. It's his gig. He's got a Brian May style guitar, but it doesn't look exactly like Brian's, but it's got the Burns pickups and everything and got all the switching and made out of the same woods and all that. I think I would probably do that. Sir has expressed a little bit of interest. He's like, man, I'd love to try a crack at making one of those guitars someday. Who knows? Maybe I could talk him into, making a version or something of that guitar that might be kind of cool. But I would probably do it in like a telly or something, but do a set neck, short scale, and put the Burns in it, and paint it like maybe do similar, but maybe to be blue or something instead of red, the black pick guard, and do the Burns pickups and the similar roller bridge with the tremolo and stuff. Or maybe I would just put the locking tremolo on it. Actually, why not? Right, the one that I use now. That's probably what I would do. And just try and make one that stays in tune really well, but basically gets those same sounds and maybe is a little bit more personal to me, because the pickup switching is fun. I mean, I could see using it in the context of doing other stuff with it, like in the studio, and might be neat. So thanks for anyway, Chris. Thanks for sending me the. It was Chris, right? I think, yeah. Thanks for sending me the Rivington Guitars link, though. It was cool. I thought about it for a minute, and then I thought I don't want to buy one of those. But, I can probably borrow Shanks he's really nice about lending things out, but he's got about 400,000 guitars. So I think I got a lot of guitars. You see, this is nothing compared to John Shanks, who is it's like an illness, but it's the coolest thing ever. The amount of stuff that guy has. I can't quite do. It's incredible. He has all the guitars. So Abracus1 says, have noticed much difference in a particular IR when loaded in a pedal like radar or cab M as opposed to the same thing in your DAW, latency, fidelity. Have I noticed? So no, the difference between IR loaders is nil. Yeah, if the cab M is going to be great. The radar is, I don't know what the maximum length as well as resolution is. It's going to be on the lower end compared to something like the cab M, which is a little more hi-fi. Like I think the radar does 44.1 16-bit IRs, maybe something like that. Whether or not you're going to hear it going to something like the cab M at 24, 48 and longer IRs, I don't know. You just have to listen. But the radar people like and have tried and seem to think it's cool. I did a demo of it. It was pretty damn good especially for the dough little thing. It's a great way to kind of play with it. Certainly in a DAW, you get all the options. Then you can play with room mics like the Celestion ones, for example. You can do different things, when you just do it. If the preferred method would be to just do it in the DAW. But sometimes the ease of, when I'm doing demos and stuff with the PT15, I just use it's got the IRs built in and it's easy and they sound killer and it's done deal, So long story short, in a mix, and you're not really going to notice, like, it's so funny because guitar sounds are so damn lo-fi anyway. I mean, you know, and when you go to mix them, you end up like shelving at 70 all the time, and you don't hear anything above, you know. I mean, there's a little bit of bullshit up there above like 8K or whatever, but it's just not really like. Do you hear it in a mix? Like, not really, you know. So when it comes to fidelity, you're dealing with a lo-fi, really lo-fi sound as it is. So, you know, what do I think of the Memory Man? Love it. Amazing. Great sounding delay. Sounds like the Edge. Always will. It's a great sound. For a modulated delay, there is not, you know, that's the sound to me. The classic kind of Memory Man thing. I have one right here that, let's see. Hooked under my board here. Anyway. This one sounds really quite good. The Deluxe Memory Man. This is the one I used in a recent video that I did for Sweetwater, where I have 5 analog delay shootout. This thing sounds great. It's got all the stuff. The chorus vibrato, the depth knob. Sounds awesome. I like it. Great cheap version of it. Well, I guess that's not expensive either, but the probably easy to find used, or relatively easy, be the Line 6 Echo Park. It's a favorite of Tim Pierce. Used it for many, many years on his board. Probably still does. It's got a great vibrato analog thing to the delay. That sounds really, really, really good. Moving down. What's my favorite Sir that I own? Well, the one I play the most these days is my blue Signature. I love that guitar. That would probably be it, I guess. I think my gold guitar is feeling neglected. It's at my rehearsal space. I should go get, or at my storage space. Excuse me, I should go get it. But the black one's great too. I mean, I've got some, you know, a bunch of really nice different ones. I've got a couple coming that are actually on order right now. There's some different, well, you'll see. I can't really. One of them is this red classic that I've got that we duplicated my Jackson neck for. So I can't wait to see what that's like all about. You know, when I get that, see how close they got the neck. It's going to be a roasted bird's eye version of my old Jackson that I grew up playing when I was a kid. So, you know, the John digitized, and it's got the flat 16-inch radius and the great big frets and all that stuff. And then it's got the new Wilkinson bridge, Thornbuckle Plus in the bridge, and 2 V60 LPs, tortoiseshell guard, you know, it'd be like a candy apple kind of aged red finish. It's going to be cool. I can't wait to try that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. But we will see. The Scummer Campbell says, "Hey Pete, just got the aux to use with my old amps, and I'm thinking of setting up a home studio. Any advice on gear and software?" Well, with the aux, you just need a good interface. I like the UA stuff. I use it all the time. Logic is my DAW of choice. Just get a good computer. You know, something with a solid state drive in it is the main thing, I think. And you know, a couple, like 1 or 2 good solid state external hard drives. What else do you need? Monitors, nice monitors. Find some you like. I like, for the kind of lower priced alternatives, I like Atom stuff. I think they're really nice for the money. Sound really good. I use a set of old A7s in here. One of these days, I'd like some A7Xs. Yeah, and I've got also a set of Barefoots, but those are more expensive. So, Artie says, my 2019 pedalboard rundown has been helpful. Can you talk a little bit about what you look for when building presets? Well, really, what I do is I have a main bank of like 5 presets. That's my kind of going from clean to quite dirty all the way across. And then within those 5 presets, I have pedals set up so I can switch things in and out really easily. Like so, and I've got a delay on an expression pedal always. So if I want to get like some echo going, or, you know, want a flanger, I've got that up, you know, dialed in. So anyways, with those 5 main presets, delay, tap, tempo, delay in front of the amp as well as post, so that I can get Echoplex stuff in front of the amp or more clean delays after. So with the, and, you know, on the cleaner sounds, I have like a tremolo, and I have a, you know, on the solo, I have like a Univibe and the Mobius or whatever set, so I can just get some sounds, basic cool guitar sounds really quickly in those 5 main presets. So I suggest when you're putting a pedal board together, configure your board so that you can get some of the good basic kind of tones that, you know, the main food groups that you think you'll need. And then beyond that, it's really just song presets. So if I'm doing any particular gig, I'll set up the pedal board so that I can, you know, like if I'm doing I've got to do it again. I'm going to be doing a one-off with Don Henley, like coming up in a little while. And it's been a long time since I played with him. So I've got to reconfigure. It's not a lot of songs for this gig. So it's 7. So, but I'll go back in and I'll make my specific. For him, I like to make specific presets for songs, you know, with the exact delay times of the, you know, solos. And it's just funny because I could probably not do that and it would be fine. You know, Joe Walsh doesn't do that, I don't think, you know, but I like to do that. It just makes me feel, you know, when I go to Hotel California and I hit the solo, I like a little bit of reverb, a little bit of echo, and I want that phaser to sound just right. So, you know, and, you know, same thing with like One of These Nights, you know, song like that. I do this harmony, you know, where I do the beginning with the 3-part minor chord, the harmony. So I've got all that mapped out in my H9 stuff. I'm using a different pedal board now, a different switcher from the last time that I played with him. So I have to make all the presets again and find my old presets for those harmonies and shit and stuff like that. But I just like to, you know, I like to, when I'm playing with him, I like walk out and look down at the board, see the set list, and I've got the numbers of my presets right there on the set list. And it's like, for this song, boom, you know. So anyways, there's 18 says, hey Pete, I'm thinking about combining the Friedman BE and BB synergy module with the Line 6 HX effects. Thoughts on this for live setup? Probably killer. I think that would be great. Terrific. You know, is that it? You're just going to use that and then like go direct or something? It'd probably be cool. I just wonder, the only thing that I haven't tried yet is like with no power amp simulation, because to me that's a big part of the sound. So how will you do that? And is there a way? I don't think there is a way in a Line 6 to just get the power amp going, right? Power amp simulation of any amp. Like if I load up HX Edit right now, let me just take a look, because my Helix is open right now. There's no way to just turn on the power amp, right, of an amplifier. I don't think so. It's like the whole amp model. Yeah, you can do preamp or you can do amp, but you can't do power amp. Something I should mention to them, like in a Helix, it would be cool to combine with something, you know, to have that. So this is something you can do with like the Wall of Sound. They've got their power amp simulations, although I have no idea how accurate they are or how good they really sound with something like I guess when I did when I think back, I did a demo of the original Torpedo Cab with the power amp sims, and I used for some of the sounds in that demo. This is go back to 2011 or something, I think, or 2012. I used my Egnator M4 preamp into the Torpedo Cab, and I turned on the power amp sims for some of that video, and it sounded really cool for like some of the EL84. I used the Vox module, and I got good results that way. So that's the only thing with doing your Friedman BE/BB synergy module with Line 6 HX effects is how do you do the power amp simulation? You might not need it. I don't know. Might not be, but you know, it definitely, having a power amp in the equation definitely affects the tone. So maybe you're talking about using it with a power amp, like coming out of the HX effects and running into a power amp into guitar cabs or something, in which case that's all covered. But yeah. Okay, moving down. Full Tone recently came out with a germanium version of the OCD. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Otherwise, it's op-amp IC driven. Can't remember the standard chip. Good to know. That was Chris Schultz. Thanks for the... See, you guys teach me stuff all the time. I learned today that there's reusable Keurig pods. I learned there's a germanium version of the OCD. I like this. So I like learning things. What's the most challenging Queen song or solo to perfect, or do you add your own style to anything? Yeah, I do. The thing is well, like Tristan's a great guitar player. Guitar player normally does this gig, and he definitely adds a lot of his own flair to it. And he's got great technique and really does, he's playing, especially on the key solos. You don't mess with Bohemian Rhapsody really that much, you know. Occasionally a little foot, but Brian actually, it's interesting because he never really played it the same way twice. He would play around with the phrasing and do different things a lot. Sort of within a loosely structured, well, I would say within a relatively tightly structured framework, actually, now that I think about it. But there's certain solos that are just Bohemian Rhapsody is the great example of, you can't really like where's my so you don't really mess with that, just up to that point. I don't know. I can't find a really way. You kind of have to play it. That this guitar frets out a bit when I damn 7.5 or 7.25 radius. I know that one you kind of need to play. It's Don't Stop Me Now, It's like a lot of them are just these really distinct melodies. It's almost like Eagles solos in some ways. They're really similar. Like, it's a part of the song. Now, some of them, I guess you can get away with changing stuff here and there. There's a few lately of the ones that I've been learning. Some of the later ones, The Show Must Go On. That's a good example. It's got all this shreddy soloing in it. It's a massively sort of overwrought production piece. And there's a lot of lead playing kind of sprinkled throughout the whole thing. And it's not so like, I don't know. It's just, you can play with it a little bit and get away with your own phrasing and stuff like that. So, and it's, what I'm doing is I've referenced the live Queen recordings, and then I listen to what Tristan's doing with the Ultimate Queen celebration, and I'll hear he's just going off in a lot of places and doing his own thing, and I'm like, that gives me the leeway. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if he's doing that, then I can do my own thing. And sometimes I'll actually go back to what Brian did even a little bit more than what he does, because I think he, like with any band, right, you get used. He's done a gajillion gigs with them. Those guys work hard. They're always playing, and as you get into it and play more, you start getting maybe a little further away from however you started, probably with the original recordings, and adding some more of your own touches. Sometimes I'll listen to it and go, well, I'm just going to kind of like, I'll listen to what he's doing. He's like wailing, like shredding, and it's great. He sounds fantastic, but I'm like, well, that's his thing. I'll go back to what Brian did, because at the end of the day, it is a Queen show, right? So I'll go back to what Brian did a little bit more, because it's a little simpler and a little bit easier to get my head around than some of what he's doing, which is actually technically he's wailing on some of the stuff. And I'll just simplify it a little bit and take it back to the core a bit, because I am trying to get so much music under my belt. I've only done one gig with these guys. It's just, I can't stress. It's actually really like kicking my ass, because it's like, I've never done anything quite like it, to be honest, with no rehearsal. And to walk out and play like 20 Queen songs and just kind of make it flow like a show. And I know they stick kind of to there's some improvisation going on and stuff, but they stick to the endings, and so if I just listen to the show tapes and learn what they did, that's basically what's going to happen. And I'll be cool. And I was the last time, but it's like, man, it is, I don't know. It's like, this is really challenging. I'm used to, when I go do gigs with people where there's a 20 songs set, or 2 sets is what it is, when I'm going to do with them, when I'm used to having 3 weeks of rehearsal, going to rehearsal every day and working it out, and you get time. There's none of that. And it's like, holy shit, like this is really hard. Like I got to go in and just do this cold, basically, with the sound check. You know, it's a lot, man. Anyway, I sound like I'm whining, but I just can't. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Rich Monk says, is Soundgarden's Dusty in an alternate tuning? I don't know. I never learned that, to tell you the truth. We never played that. So I'd have to go listen to it, check it out. Sorry. I wish you did the top chat and everything. I don't even have a good answer for you. But I will say this. Anytime I was ever wondering if it was in an alternate tuning, it generally was. And then I would go search it out on Google or something, and somebody had figured it out. I mean, for every song, Burden in My Hand, Pretty Noose, Day I Tried to Live, any of those songs, if you look up tuning, just Google tuning and the name of the song and Soundgarden or whatever, and you'll get somebody that's figured it out and is teaching it. Because, 20 years on now or something, it's like all that information's come out. And, yeah. Okay. What else we got here? L. Scott Music says, Lauren says 20 songs. And the song said, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. Yeah, it's hard work. It is hard work. It's just a lot of, you know what it is with tours? And even one-offs is the worst, is prep. Because you say you're going to do it for a certain amount of money, right? And you guys that are gigging people, you know this. It's like, except there's a travel day on one end and there's a travel day on the other end. So if you're going to do a one-off, it's 3 days, generally speaking. Because if you want to go to the East Coast, especially if it's on the East Coast, there ain't no flying in the day of. You got to get there the day before. So that kills one day. Then you've got gig day, and then you got the day going back. And by the time you get back home and back from LAX to wherever you live or whatever, I don't care if you left at 6 a.m, it's now 2 p.m. or whatever, and your day's gone. You're not getting a hell of a lot of more work done that day. So it's a 3-day thing. And so they'll give you a price for the gig, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do it for this. Now it could be an exorbitant amount of money, but generally speaking, it's not. And so you're doing it for whatever you said you would do it for. But now you got to consider the prep. And we all know this. It's like learning the tunes. And I've often thought that it's like, when you're getting ready for some of these tours, it's like, man, you never negotiate into your price or your tour the amount of work that you need to put in the beginning. And it is, generally speaking, if you're learning 20 tunes or whatever it is, for a tour, it's generally even more, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 songs, it's weeks at that point of work that you put in that you don't get compensated for. Where you're sitting there and you're programming your pedal board, or you're coming up with the sounds, you're going over this stuff. I mean, it's so much work. It really is. And this is the hard part, is all that prep, that time that you don't get paid for. And I've often thought that should be something that's, with certain bands, I've heard of people actually, there was a major band that was going out on tour. I won't say who, but major band that was going out on tour. And their original guitar player was, like, shall we say, in shaky condition at the time. This is a long time ago. And my friend was tapped to be the guitar player to go out and do it. And it looked like he was going to be the one filling this guy's shoes and going out and playing with them. And anyway, at the end of the day, the guy got it together. The original dude in the band got it together. And my friend actually hit them up because now they're like, sorry, we don't need your services anymore. But of course, you're getting ready for this major tour and you're like learning all this material and stuff and working on it. And then, like, the week before you're supposed to go out, it's like, oh, well, now I don't have the job. And he actually hit them up and said, and I've been preparing for this tour for weeks and like a month or 2 months or whatever, and learning all this material. I think it would be appropriate for me to get X amount of money, which was a substantial amount of money, actually. And he sent them a letter stating, in a very business-like, professional way. And they said, okay. And they actually paid him. And I thought that was cool. I've actually had that happen now that I think about it, where a gig got canceled and I still, yes, I have. Yeah. Where I put in a lot of work and I actually ended up getting paid for some prep time, at least once, maybe twice. Yeah. Without having to ask, actually. They just said, we'll pay you. I think it was like half pay or something they gave me when they ended up canceling this thing. But anyways, whatever. Oh boy. Modern Vintage says, he's in the top chat, considering selling my amps and using Synergy instead of saving for tube amps, over time that Synergy makes modules for how is the feel versus the actual amp. Well, the feel's good because it is an actual tube front end, so it's an amp, you know. But what I'm trying to get across here by using my PT15 and using the Synergy modules is that you can augment sound. So as opposed to selling all your amps, keep an amp of yours that you've got that's a good, something you like that's got an effects loop that works well, and then use that as the foundation for the modules, and then getting a bunch of different sounds. And they sound great. I mean, whether or not it's going to sound exactly the same as your other amps, probably not, because they've all got their individual output tubes, output transformers, all the other stuff that affects the tone of an amp. But it's going to be similar, at least in the same vein. I don't know how close. I guess that's a YouTube video that somebody's got to make for Synergy, right? How close does it get to the real thing? It's interesting. It'd be good to have a real SLO and a real. Maybe I'll do that video. I don't know. Real SLO and a real 30 Shirley, and what else we got here? The VH4 and all that, and see how close it actually comes when comparing to the real thing. Yeah. Are they going to record the Queen gig? I would love to see you play that. No, but I'm sure there'll be videos that'll show up on YouTube. Wait till it comes out. I'll see if I do a good job. And then if the videos are cool, I'll send you the link. Yeah. Okay. Moving down in the chat. God, there's so many that I haven't gotten to. I'm really sorry, you guys. Backed up and I got stuck. Okay, let's see. Santa Cruz says, I have heard Dave Friedman and John Searle say they make a Marshall because Marshall isn't making one like they used to. Isn't the 1959 hand wired like the original? Yes, it's pretty damn close. The hand wired, give or take a few things. I think they had some problems with the output transformers on those. I heard they were like blowing up a little bit and stuff. But yes, basically, I mean, if you've got the hand wired, but it's also like $3,200 or $4,000. I mean, I think an SL68 is less than the, and you get a little bit more options because you got a post phase inverter master on it as well as the low voltage mode. So, the Variac mode, which incidentally is how I use mine all the time. Like the Variac mode just sounds sweet and awesome. That's how I like that amp used. So, but when we're talking about, like, say the little baby Plexi 20 watt one they make now, as well as the JCM 800, cool amps. From what I've heard online, I haven't tried them, but when you look on the inside, they're like, it's like, they're not really like, they don't like, I don't know. It'd be a fun amp to have, those little 20 watts and stuff, but they ain't no, SL68 or, the way it's just, you know what I'm talking about. Look for videos or photos or whatever, the internals of those amps. Yes, the hand wired though. Sure. It's looks, yes, they do a good job on those, from what I've seen. I've never actually played one. I've only seen them. I've looked at them extensively online though, and looked at the way they're built and stuff, and they seem like they do a great job on those. The JTM 45s and stuff too. I wish they'd do a 50. That would be cool. I'm so far back in the chat. I have to go soon. It's about 1:03, so I got to get on with some work, but I'll hang for another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to split. So I'm just going to go to the end here and see what you guys are talking about. Queen gigs in West Virginia, what I'm doing. And it's in about a week or so. Somebody's asking about that. Modern Vintage is in the top chat. Says, "Oh, you're the fellow that was thinking about getting rid of your amps." Thinking of doing so since I play at home and can buy great guitars with the money from the amp. Seems best to get great guitars now and more amps later. Yeah, just keep a simple. If you're going to use it, do a simple little setup. Like that's what I'm trying to sort of demonstrate here, is having something like the PT15, a great little amp that's got some killer sounds, and augmenting those sounds with the modules. I think that's kind of what I find the most interesting about the modules is that, you could have a cool little head with an effects loop and then be able to get some different sounds. Maybe with 2 or 3 of those modules, you'd have some neat variations on your amp tones. L. Scott Music Lauren makes a good point. He says synergy amp pointer. Make sure your amp has a series effects loop and not a parallel loop. The parallel will probably have a blend control. Yeah, most amps, I don't think there's too many amps out there that are just purely parallel. I mean, most of them, if they've got a parallel loop, they've got a series option as well, or a mix control, like you say. I can't think of one that's just parallel, but yeah, you will want to use the loop in series in your amp for sure. Most effects loops are series, but yeah. Someone just made a video on YouTube doing a direct comparison of an SLO and its synergy counterpart. Interesting. I'm gonna go search for that. Stephen Douglas letting us know that. I wanna see that for sure. Yeah. Okay. Hi Pete, what do you think the XFX3? I have the Helix and think it would be an upgrade. That's James. I haven't messed with it enough, and I feel I've had one here for a long time, but I've just been so damn busy doing different stuff that I haven't had, because I feel like I need to at least put a day into getting into it. It's sitting here looking at me right now, and I know I need to get into it because it's a hell of a piece of gear. And but people that use it a lot, like for instance, I've got like prominent users like my friend from Perfect Circle. He plays it and he loves it, and he's been using Fractal for years now, and he says it is a big upgrade, and that it's a I'm talking about Billy from Perfect Circle. He's been a Axflex user for a long time, and then went to it for this latest tour that they did, and he thinks it's terrific, and that it does make a difference, that it's an upgrade over the previous Axe sounds. I mean, that said, it's interesting for the Helix. Okay, so for AX8, I'm using for the Queen stuff, right? And Tristan sent me his patches, as I was saying, and they use a Morgan AC20 for the AC30 type sounds, and he uses stock cabs, I think. Some of the built-in, when I'm trying to remember the names of the cabinets, but it's like the Blues 212 mix or something is one of them that he uses. It's a an AC30 Blue speaker, with a mix of microphones on it. And he uses that as well as one other IR in there. They sounded great, and they worked great for that music. I mean, I was like actually pretty impressed. And he does a little bit of, uses an enhancer to get a little bit of a stereo spread going, because Brian May used 3 AC30s with a chorus and stuff and blending in so he uses the enhancer in the Axe effects. It sounds great. And I'll actually run the Cornish. It's kind of funny because I'm running a Cornish, which also belongs to Shanks, but it's his Cornish treble booster. So there's one treble booster on in the fake one in the Axe effects, and that's kind of Tristan's rhythm sound. And then he switches to a lead preset to do leads. I just turn on the Cornish treble booster, so it's kind of treble boosting the whole thing with a real treble booster that already has a fake treble booster on. Anyways, it sounds amazing. So that's what I'm doing for the lead sounds, kind of turning on the Cornish. So the combination of that with the AX8 sounds great. Now, I tried the Helix, and I didn't have a lot of time, because I just don't have a ton of time to learn. Once again, I'm just busy doing 20 million things. I wanted to see within 20 minutes or so if I could get it close to what I could get out of the Axe effects as far as the AC30 sounds and stuff, and how close I could get to the Brian May thing. Wasn't successful really with it. And I really like the Helix. I just couldn't quite get it as close. So for that sound, it's interesting. These units, they've got their strength. I'm not saying I couldn't do it either. If I spent enough time, maybe, trying, there's the 3 different AC30s, or 2 different ones at least in the Helix. I just had to spend some more time on it, maybe. But and cab sims make such a big difference. But the sounds that I'm getting out of the Fractal it's like, that's my rig for that thing now. That AX8, I'm just sold on it. For that's even maybe not as cool as the Axe 3. So I guess it just depends what you're doing. The question you ask, is it better? Would it be an upgrade? It's like, it's such a deep question with these modelers, because it's like, There's so many factors. One of the main things is the ease of use. You know, the Axe-Fx is just a deeper. The editor for the Axe-Fx is pretty damn good. Not as good as the Helix. You guys know what I'm talking about. There's that communication break every time you change presets or whatever, and you have to click it in the editor and stuff. The Helix editor works like flawless, and it's very, very simple. And just it's a simple. I don't know. It's just is this. The workflow is really easy with the Helix. The Axe-Fx is a little more difficult, but that tone that I'm getting out of the Axe-Fx is just really damn good. And when you listen to the recordings of the Queen Ultimate Celebration, you know, with Tristan, the board recordings that I work off of, that I'm learning stuff off of, it sounds killer. It's just like in the mix, it's like, I don't know, it probably sounds every bit as good as whatever Brian May's got going these days with real AC30s. Almost hesitate to say that, but it really does sound good. So I don't know. It's a question I don't have an answer for, really. Like, is the Axe-Fx better than the Helix? I mean, sometimes for some people, I would say yes. Other times for other people, I would say no. I just don't know. You know, it depends what you're doing. Okay, that was a really long-winded diatribe that left you with completely more confused than you were before you asked me the question, right? Yeah. Bunch of spam coming in from somebody named Deal With It. I know that my moderator is probably dealing with it. Thank you, good sir. Yeah. Axe-Fx 3 is $22.49. It is an expensive unit, but I guess it's a lot more than a Helix, isn't it, too? That's the other thing. I see that AC/DC keeps an amp tech on tour with them. Fixes them as needed during the shows. Always keep backups. That's from Brett. Yeah, actually, they took for a long time. They would have Rick St. Pierre from Wizard would just go on the road with them. As what he would tour with Aerosmith, I think, too. So owner of an amp company that was actually making the amps they were using would go out and tour with them. When you're AC/DC and playing stadiums, you can afford it, to have that going on. Def Leppard uses Axe-Fx 3, I believe that's right, and Metallica now uses Axe-Fx 3. Yeah, that was from Byron. Metallica switched to the Axe gear when they went to Antarctica and did a gig, because of course it was just impossible to bring. Imagine shipping to Antarctica. It was like next to impossible to bring their full touring setup. So they went with Axe-Fx's, and I think that was the turning point where they went, wait a minute, that was a successful experiment. We'll just do this and save a lot of money, as opposed to shipping amps all over the world. So anyways, what can you do? Once again, I come back to the PT50, and this is what we've tried to do. Is give you an actual amp that's not too much bigger than something like an Axe-Fx, and for folks that want to use a traditional amp, you've now got a lot of the modeling the back end, I say, options, direct out, line out, and all that, run right to the board, but you've also got a real amp that you can plug into a cab if you want to. Pete, have you had any success running your pedal board into your UA with an amp sim? Have I done that? I probably did when I was making my record. I did a few things with amp sims on my album, and generally speaking, I'll run through my pedal board when I'm recording, because I've got the tuner in line and everything, and then I'm running through my switcher and then plugging into whatever I'm plugging into. I'm pretty sure I probably ran it into sim. It'll work great in front of my, the UA amp sims, for example, like the PT100. You can run, you want to do an analog echo or a wah or something in front, go for it. If you want to hear like some of the direct stuff I did on the record, like for example, listen to the main guitar tone on the song L'Avenir, the second song on the album. That's plug-in. So the guitar part that comes into the beginning, the arpeggiated guitar part, that's the dirty tone. That was a plug-in. Can't remember what else I did with plugins on the album, but I used a little bit. Okay. Looking. Hi, Pete. If you could have a signature pedal, what would your specs be? That's Marty. Well, I'm working on stuff like that, talking about it. My ideas for signature pedals are basically, once again, it's just things like with any of my stuff that real musicians, I mean, like working musicians is what I mean. People that do a lot of gigs that are in the trenches, stuff like that, to try and make it easier for people like that. Working musicians that, doing a ton of cover gigs and you need to throw something in your bag and, get to a session and then go to a cover gig, whatever, that kind of player. Real musicians, not those rock stars and bands that get to play whatever they want. But anyways, so I thought nothing's coming out yet, but I've been working on things, and something that'll be probably seeing the light of day at some point is like a multi kind of pedal that does a ton of different things. So that you got a one stop kind of, you're going to the jam, you're going to the session, you need a bunch of stuff, but simple. So I've been working on that a little bit. I'll say that. And then I'd love to have, there's a trend. I'd love to work on something, and this will be further down the road, but it's like PT15-ish, but right? Because that's a trend too, the pedals. So that would mean more along the lines of preampy, ampy, something like that. That is a kind of very small. Alrighty, I'm going to split pretty quick here. Let me see, just going to the end of the chat. Ben says, if you're new to the stream and you like it, subscribe to Pete and show your support. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Thank you again for all your help today. I do appreciate it. I do. Rick Beato is not happy about Metallica moving to Amp Sims. That's Lauren. It's funny. We had a phone conversation. Last time I talked to Rick, he was like, Pete, what the hell's up with all these metal bands using the Axe effects? He was pissed. But I get his point. Rick's point is that metal used to be signature tones were really important. Maybe this is the last thing I'll talk about here today, but it is a really, after saying all this stuff about, generally favorable stuff about it, metal, Tony Iommi, right? I mean, the treble booster video, that's kind of what I was doing there when I made that video. Judas Priest using old Marshalls on the normal input with a treble booster to get their sound. Tony Iommi doing a very similar thing. Eddie Van Halen's not really metal, but he did play a Marshall on 10 with quite a distorted sound. These people, they used to come up with really unique guitar sounds. Richie Blackmore, proto metal, I guess, I don't know, heavy. Even the Who, I mean, they were like, the basis for like what people went from, turning up amps loud and playing dirty rock and roll guitar. If you do homogenize that down into a one sound sort of simulation, it's not one sound because there's a million options in there, but they are doing recreations of sounds of yore, things that it's like Sir always says, he's like, when I hear it sound better, then I'll be a believer. When I hear somebody make a sound that's like, oh my God, that's incredible, but it's a new thing that's done with the digital stuff. And I would agree, I haven't heard that yet. It's always simulating the old stuff, right? Like, can you guys think of a digital simulation that's, I remember when Dimebag used the Randall, right? And it was solid state, but it was cool. And it was like, but that was a real amp. That's maybe the closest thing, because he wasn't playing tubes, but he used an amp to get his sound, and it was a signature sound. It was a unique sound. That unique, really groundbreaking, doing something different and having your own sound. That's where Rick's got a beef, I think, because I remember talking to him about it. He was saying, he was talking about one band that was on a budget, a metal band. I can't remember who, but he said they both play through the same Axe effects because they've got two inputs and two channels that you can run separate parallel paths. So to save money, they use the same one. This is funny, man. He really had a problem with it. And I agree. I mean, it's like, you don't want to homogenize it. It kind of think about it this way. The dual rectifier, right? So new metal, that amp was everywhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was the amp that everybody used. Occasionally you'd see somebody with a diesel or, something, but it was like for metal, it was a lot of these, a lot of dual rectifiers and stuff. And it wasn't, everybody sounded the same. That's where the problem happened, and even the great guitar players that, folks like Ed and, And you saw, who else? Like Tony, even, you saw a lot of these guitar players getting away from their unique tones and going towards a saturated high gain. And I guess the more distortion you use and the more saturated it gets, and the more everybody plays sort of preamp gain and not the whole amp being, like when I think of modern guitar tones that are unique and have a sound, I think of Queens of the Stone Age or something. That was how metal guys used to get their sound, like some kind of Ampeg or something with, like some weird pedal in front or something, and boosting the shit out of the mid range or whatever, and doing that's a more unique approach that people used to do. So that anyway, it's just the uniqueness that I think Rick has a problem with more than if somebody was doing an incredible sound that was incredibly unique and groundbreaking and different and a signature thing, and it sounded like them, and they were using a digital thing to get there, I bet Rick probably wouldn't have a problem with it. It's probably less about tubes and all that and more about the uniqueness. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we did have this phone conversation. It was mainly, that was the thing, it was that, everybody, it was the homogenization, I think, as I remember, that he was having more of a, and I would agree with that. I think that, Bam Mozzie says, gotta say Metallica sound is great live and consistent from gig to gig. Sure, people are coming away saying it's the best Metallica sounded. I don't know, man. I mean, I saw them in '86. I did see them then. I saw them on Master of Puppets tour right after Jason Newsted joined, like a month after. And I had good seats too. I was right up front. It was a great gig. I remember that. But the best they sounded now, I don't know, man. I like Metallica a lot and stuff, but I think, to me, mm, I do. I like Metallica, but to me, they reached the height of their power in about 1987 or 8 or something. Maybe many would probably argue before that. I don't know, but not to bag it. They're the most successful heavy metal band of all time, right? And they're around, and it's still those guys, and with obviously bass player changes and stuff like that. But I don't know. Probably goes deeper than the gear, I'll take a couple more here and then I got to split. Robert says, my PT signature, sir, is so easy to fret. After playing it 4 months, went to another of my guitars and my fingers got sore. That's the same thing I have with it. I get spoiled. You get used to the guitar, and then it's like you come back to it after playing something else. You're like, oh my God, it's like home base for me now. It really is. It's just a really comfortable guitar to play. I'm glad you're having good success with it, though. Thank you for getting one. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Satriani hasn't sounded as good since he has used more gain and Sustainiac. Yeah, I mean, the more gain you use, no matter what, it is kind of a rule of thumb. It just homogenizes. The more distortion that you get there from, preamp, it just, everything starts sounding a little bit samey. A little bit less gain than you're comfortable with is always a great, especially when recording. Just dial it back a little bit less than you think. The sound just gets punchier and clearer in the mix, and it's always a great approach, Glenn says Metallica has a job to do now, and guitar amps are not important to that job. Neither is Rick Beato's opinion. Well, that's a strong opinion you've got there, though. You've got an opinion. A job to do. Really? I know, like you mean they've got money to make or whatever? It's not really what metal's about, is it? I mean, I get it. Everybody's got to make a living, but I'm just pausing for impact. A job to do. I would argue that the job would be to make the best music possible. That would be the job, I'm not saying that they don't strive for that either. I'm not saying that at all. I know that and they're saving money using Axe-Fax. And I don't have a problem. Once again, I like these things, But a job to do. And Rick's opinion is an opinion like any others, but it is an educated opinion. Rick's an intelligent guy that's got his finger on the pulse of a lot of. No, honestly, he really has an informed valuable. He's a deep dude with a lot of great insight. That's what Rick gives us, is his insight. That's his whole bag. So yes, it's opinion a lot, but what makes this song great, in his opinion? That's his whole YouTube personality. And he's got about almost 1 million strong followers. So his opinion resonates with a lot of people, right? But a job to do. I would argue that the job of any musician, first and foremost, is to deliver the absolute best, coolest music that you can possibly. It's not some bean counter, trying to make as much money as possible, right? The job is to be awesome at music. That's it. That's the job, and the money that comes from it is the side benefit. Do you think Metallica in 1984 ever thought, when they did, when the 83, like Ride the Lightning, which is, you know what I mean? Do you think that they thought that one day it'd be like, well, we're just going through the motions, or job to do, or whatever we got to go do? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not saying that they feel that way. You're kind of almost saying that they feel that way, I think. Well, it's a job. Let's go out and do it and make some money. I don't know. Maybe you're not saying that. I don't mean to put words in your mouth either. But and I'm not suggesting they go back to amps. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying, I don't know. Hey, they try, man. I mean, like, they've done. I admire their crazy production that they've done on some of their records that doesn't resonate with a lot of people. People are like, listen to that snare drum. What the hell is going on? But they've tried different things at times. I think they're trying to do a good job. They're trying at times to do, the best that they can possibly do with whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they do go out there and they make bold decisions sometimes to do things and try and shift it around a little bit. But maybe sometimes they don't too. I don't know. Anyways, who am I to say? But once again, we've all got opinions, and I don't know. Leo says, dang, if it ever gets to the point where I'm doing a job, please fire me. I get it, what he was saying. I don't want to be too hard on him, because it's like sometimes I'm doing it. Like I'm doing a job when I go out to play with the Queen band, right? And I bring the AX8. I get it. I know what you're saying, but I don't have an option in that. I don't have an option. It's like I can't bring an AC30 or 3 AC30s, and it's not going to happen. So I have to use, if I take the gig, the tools. And I guess, so there you go. It is what it is. And it works good. So blah, blah, blah. In 1984, I thought the job of musicians was to get women. I didn't say that. David did. Harmonicaster says, can the audience hear the difference between real amps and digital reproductions? I don't know. I mean, can you? I don't know. It's pretty damn close. And I don't know. I mean, so who's to say Metallica don't really dig their tones with the Hx effects? I'm sure they do, I'm sure they think it sounds great. Like, once again, I'm using it, and I just did a whole diatribe on how it sounded great for this AC30 thing, so it does work really good. Yeah, I'm not saying it sounds any worse. I don't know. But the best sounding records were in Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. Come on, give me a break, right? Can we just agree that the best sounding Metallica records are Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets? And kill them all. Anybody gonna fight me on that one? Come on. They had it all figured out. That's it. They had it all figured out. It's kind of like Van Halen, right? They kind of had it all figured out before 1980. AC/DC had it all figured out by 1980. Anybody could sit here and argue with me, but I bet you know a hell of a lot more people that are like, no, that's pretty much true. Like when we think about the classic AC/DC albums pre-1980, Pinnacle, Back in Black, and about as smooth as it ever needed to get, right? Metallica, Pinnacle, Ride the Lightning. Black Album, bigger, more sales, bigger hits. Metallica, though, I don't know. For me, it was Ride the Lightning. Who else could we say? What other bands had it all figured out by 1980? The Who. Certainly the Rolling Stones. all figured out. You know, hey, like my friend Mark Goldenberg would probably argue that nobody had anything on the guitar players or the recording engineers, post Elvis. If you listen to some of those 50s recordings and how people were playing and how they sounded, it's like, oh my God, they sound so damn good, So I don't know. I would argue that actually the pinnacle of recording for me, I think, when records started sounding just incredible and things maybe never really improved, just sort of changed and maybe sometimes for the worse, or maybe made lateral moves, was probably the mid to late 70s. I think for me, recording, I mean, it's all open to interpretation, but if you listen to some of that heart that was done in the 70s, how well it was recorded, it was Steely Dan, I mean, it's like, how many examples could I come up with of stuff that sounded just, Pink Floyd, man. Come on. It's just like Pink Floyd is another one. Kind of had it all figured out by 1980. Like, I don't really think it ever got, the Division Bell, I'll take, Dark Side of the Moon. I don't know. Just for me, man. And that was the time so if we look at that, and go back to, I don't know. There's some great albums in the 90s too, terrific sounding. I mean, Super Unknown. I had a great time here with Michael Beinhorn a couple weeks ago. He came by to borrow a piece of gear from me, and he produced Super Unknown as well as Celebrity Skin. What a fascinating we'd never really gotten to talk before, and we ended up talking for about an hour about all kinds of stuff. And he's just like a great guy. I want to hang out with him more actually, because he's just a brilliant dude. But I just loved he's not no compromising going on. He was asking me about my whole amp switching rig here and stuff. And he goes, well, can you combine two amps at once? And I was like, well, no, not with what I'm doing. I could do that, but I can't do it with the switcher. And he was like, oh, really? He's like, I can't ever get a guitar sound without blending at least two amps. And then I remembered on Super Unknown, he used a dual recto and a JCM or a mid 70s Marshall JMP, I think. So he's all about blending two amps at least. So I was like, okay, that's, I'm talking to a guy here that made to me the Sgt. Pepper's of the 90s, which is Super Unknown. But there's an uncompromising dude, and he was asking me a little bit about modelers. Now that I think about it, this is funny. This is a nice way to wrap up the thoughts on this. And he goes, so what do you think about all that stuff? Like, he was pointing at my rack over here where I have the Helix stuff. And I go, well, and he goes, your face just told me everything I need to know. Which is producers, they're like, they'll hone in on it's like psychologists almost. It's incredible. But anyways, I got to go too. Tom's in the top chat. Thanks, Tom. He says, I got to go now mow the lawn with my tube lawnmower. Thanks, Tom. Whatever gear works for you and inspires you playing. Absolutely, man. There's no right or wrong way to do this stuff. If you're an Hx Effects user, like I said, I'm going to have a great time going to use mine this week. I like it. I use it. I use it all. I use it all when I can. And sometimes when I need to, and other times, when it's just the best Rolling Stones are pre-1972, says Harmonicaster. I would agree with a lot of that. I love some 70s. And, for me, Tattoo You was the last classic Stones album. Waiting on a Friend and, Start Me Up and stuff. Those songs to me. But I bought that record when it came out. So that's how old I am. That's like, that whatever resonated with you when you're 14 years old or 13 or 12 or whatever I was when I was probably 12 years old when I bought that record. And so that record to me, it was like the new Stones record came out and it had Start Me Up on it. First song on the album, Drop the Needle. And it's like, that's badass, and it was so much fun listening to. So that's what I think of as the last classic Stones record. And the first one that I bought with my own money because it was the new one. Crazy to think that music was just, we think of these bands now as so classic and so old, but those guys were only like late 30s then. Whenever I got that, I think, right around 1980, 81, 82. So they were still pretty young dudes. I was thinking about like ZZ Top, it's like when El Loco came out, they'd only been a band for like 10 years, or so. and I bought that record too, like right when it came out. And then the Eliminator came out, and we think about that as like classic rock now, but it was like those were young guys making music then. I don't know, it's just so weird to me. I'm stating the obvious, but it's just like I forget sometimes that that's not classic rock in the sense that when I bought it originally, it was brand new music. To me, it was like as young as it gets. 1970s was a great time for music, says Frank. Loved it. Air Supply, says Marty. Hey, 10cc. If you guys want to see something, I'm going to go after this. I promise. I'm going to get out of here. This has been fun though, but that's why I won't shut up. But the 10cc video on YouTube, go look at the making of that song. What's it called? I'm Not in Love or whatever that song was called. I think that's what it's called. But the making of that song, the 10cc hit on YouTube, where they talk about the layering of all the vocal parts and how they basically played the recording console to bring up the different chords and stuff, is really great YouTube video to watch. So go watch that if you want to see some cool, talk about like the pinnacle of people were getting creative, and recording got really, really interesting and sounded fantastic in that kind of mid to late 70s. Go watch the recording of that 10cc song and how they did it. It's a great video. They basically demonstrate the whole thing, and it's so unique because the instruments, I think there's only like electric piano, very little going on drum wise on that track, and it's all about those beautiful vocal chords where they took weeks to layer all these vocal parts and sing them, and they're basically making the pads that are the backing for the beautiful vocal melody for that song. It's a great song. But I love that stuff, how hard people used to have to work to do that stuff. So anyways, everybody, okay, have a great rest of your week, because I guess today's the first of the week, and we'll see you next week. See you next Sunday if you're around, if you can make it. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks to all you guys for doing the top chat and stuff, and thanks again to Ben for being my moderator. I really appreciate it, dude. You're a good man. Over and out. Have a good weekend.